The world thought the space race was over. America beat the Soviet Union to the moon, and that was the end of the story. But now, a new war is happening above your head every single night. Not between countries, not between armies, between one private company and literally the rest of the planet. And the terrifying part? SpaceX might already be winning by a margin nobody can stop. For decades, space belonged to governments. NASA, Roscosmos, ESA, China's CNSA. These were giant national programs backed by trillions of dollars, military budgets, and decades of scientific dominance. Then in 2002, a billionaire entrepreneur walked into a warehouse in Los Angeles and decided he wanted to build rockets cheaper than anyone else on Earth. Most people laughed. The first 3 launches failed. The company nearly collapsed. Employees slept in factories. Money was disappearing fast. One more failed launch, and SpaceX would have died forever. But the 4th launch succeeded, and that single moment quietly changed the future of humanity. Because today, SpaceX is no longer just another rocket company. It's becoming the infrastructure of space itself. Right now, when you look up at the night sky, there's a good chance the majority of satellites above you belong to one company. Not a country, not a military alliance, one company. That company is SpaceX. And the scale is almost impossible to understand. Thousands upon thousands of Starlink satellites now surround Earth in low orbit, creating the largest satellite network ever built by humans. Every few days, more are launched. Every few weeks, the number grows larger. And while governments hold meetings, debates, and committee discussions, SpaceX just keeps launching. Again, and again, and again. The reason this matters isn't just internet access, it's power. Because whoever controls communication in space controls far more than people realize. Starlink isn't just helping remote villages stream videos or access the internet. It became critical military infrastructure during real-world conflicts. When traditional communications failed, Starlink kept working. When towers were destroyed, satellites stayed online. And suddenly governments realized something terrifying. A private company had become more operationally useful than many national communication systems. That changes everything. But here's where the story becomes even crazier. SpaceX didn't dominate because it invented completely magical technology. Its real weapon was speed. Before SpaceX, rocket launches felt historic. A launch was a major event, a national achievement, something rare. SpaceX changed that mentality entirely. Now launches happen so often people barely pay attention anymore. One rocket lands successfully, then another launches days later. Boosters return from space, get refurbished, and fly again like reusable airplanes. That single idea shattered the economics of the industry. Because traditional rockets were basically disposable. Imagine throwing away a Boeing 747 after every flight. That's how space agencies operated for decades. SpaceX looked at that system and said, what if rockets could land and fly again? And suddenly launch costs collapsed. That's the moment competitors started panicking. Because SpaceX wasn't acting like a normal aerospace company. It was acting like a tech company. Fast iteration, rapid production, aggressive scaling, constant upgrades. While governments moved slowly through years of approvals and politics, SpaceX moved like Silicon Valley. And the gap became enormous. Take a look at the competition. Amazon has Project Kuiper. China has the Guowang constellation. Europe is building Iris. OneWeb launched hundreds of satellites. But compared to SpaceX, the numbers don't even look real. SpaceX launches more rockets in a year than some countries launch in decades. That's not competition anymore. That's industrial domination. And then there's the real engine behind everything, Starlink. At first, people thought satellite internet sounded niche, too expensive, too complicated, too limited. But Starlink exploded globally. Remote villages, ships at sea, military units, airplanes, disaster zones, rural homes. Millions of users now depend on it. And every new subscriber sends more money back into SpaceX. That money funds more rockets. More rockets launch more satellites. More satellites improve the network. Better service attracts more customers. More customers create more revenue. It's a flywheel that keeps accelerating, and competitors are struggling to keep up. But dominance in space creates a massive new problem. Who regulates all of this? Because the rules humanity created for space were written decades ago, back when nobody imagined tens of thousands of satellites orbiting Earth simultaneously. Now, orbital traffic is becoming crowded, very crowded. Satellites constantly maneuver to avoid collisions. Tiny mistakes could create catastrophic debris fields moving faster than bullets. One collision can trigger another, and another. Scientists call this nightmare the Kessler syndrome, a chain reaction where low Earth orbit becomes so dangerous that future missions become nearly impossible. Right now, experts don't believe SpaceX is close to causing that disaster, but they are deeply worried about what happens when everyone starts copying the same strategy. Because once one company proves a mega constellation works, everyone wants one. China wants one. Europe wants one. Amazon wants one. Governments want independent systems. And suddenly, the skies above Earth could become dangerously overcrowded. There's another issue governments rarely discuss publicly: dependence. Because what happens if one private company controls the majority of orbital communication infrastructure? Think about that carefully. If military systems rely on Starlink, if remote economies rely on Starlink, if emergency communication relies on Starlink, then SpaceX becomes more than a business. It becomes geopolitical infrastructure, and that gives enormous influence to one corporation and one individual, Elon Musk. That reality makes governments uncomfortable, very uncomfortable. Because historically, communication systems were controlled by nations. Now the balance is shifting toward private industry, and nobody fully understands the consequences yet. Meanwhile, SpaceX is already planning the next leap. Starship, the largest and most powerful rocket ever built. If Falcon 9 disrupted the industry, Starship could completely rewrite it. The goal isn't just cheaper launches anymore. The goal is mass-scale space transportation. Huge payloads, massive satellite deployments, moon missions, Mars ambitions. And if Starship becomes fully operational, SpaceX could launch satellites at a scale competitors physically cannot match. That's why the rest of the world is nervous. Because this isn't slowing down, it's accelerating. Think about how insane this timeline actually is. In just a few years, SpaceX transformed from an underdog startup into the dominant force in orbit. Entire government programs are now trying to catch up. But space infrastructure moves slowly. Building rockets takes years. Building satellite networks takes years. Creating launch capacity takes years. SpaceX already has all three. And while competitors are still planning, SpaceX is already executing. This is why many analysts no longer describe the industry as a race. A race implies equal competitors. What's happening now feels more like one company reached the future early, while everyone else is stuck trying to understand the rules. Because SpaceX doesn't just build rockets, it builds the rockets, launches the rockets, manufactures the satellites, operates the network, controls the software, and profits from the entire cycle. That level of vertical integration is almost unheard of in modern industry, and it creates a terrifying advantage. The biggest question now isn't whether SpaceX dominates commercial space. It clearly does. The real question is this: can the rest of the world catch up before space itself becomes permanently shaped around one company's infrastructure? Because every launch increases the gap. Every satellite strengthens the network. Every customer deepens dependence. And every successful mission pushes SpaceX further ahead. The world is still reacting. SpaceX is already building the next phase. One day historians may look back at this era the same way we look at the birth of railroads, electricity, or the internet. A moment when one company moves so fast it forced the entire planet to reorganize around it. And right now, that transformation is happening above our heads every single night. Quietly, relentlessly, launch by launch, satellite by satellite. The commercial space race has already begun, and SpaceX may have taken a lead so massive that nobody knows how to close it. The next Starlink launch is probably only days away, and the one after that is already being prepared. The race for space is no longer science fiction. It's happening right now. And every launch changes the balance of power above Earth a little more. So the question is, will anyone catch SpaceX? Or is the future of orbit already decided? If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the biggest battles shaping our future.